Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic is, does AI say that what is going on right now lead to an internal revolution? I think you're going to be shocked. Now, before we get into that, if you want to get some crypto, we have made some awesome arrangements. Go to prophecyclubcrypto.com, prophecyclubcrypto.com, and if you fill out that little name place there, they call you back real quick and will help you to understand and help you to get into it. Okay, so let me start with a little video clip. Now, here's what I want you to notice in this. He's about to say that Chicago is willing to rise up in arms against any kind of a force that Donald Trump might send in. Watch.
What he is proposing at this point would be the most flagrant violation of our Constitution in the 21st century. The city of Chicago has a long history of standing up against tyranny, resisting those who wish to undermine the interests of working people. We're not going to back down. We're not going to cower. We're not going to bend. We're not going to break. We are Chicago. We are the soul of America, and we will maintain that posture from now until.
Okay, it's just starting. Now, before I get more deep into that topic, let me encourage you to come to the Prophecy, Healing, and Deliverance Conference. It's right here in the DFW area, and especially all of you folks that are in the DFW area. We really encourage you to come. I'm going to be speaking on 3 topics, Leslie 3 topics, Lou and Suni on 3 topics, and then Jonathan Kate, which if you watch them on Sunday, I mean, all of these speakers are really good. And this tells you a little bit more about what we're going to be speaking on. And you should sign up and come by going to prophecyclub.com. The dates are September 11 through 14. 11 through 14, it tells you all of the details at prophecyclub.com. Okay, so the first article. Opponents say Trump's proposed federal takeover of New York City would be unconstitutional, but that's not necessarily true. Now, the guy you just watched said it's unconstitutional for Trump to send in the National Guard or the military into a city. This article is going to say that's not exactly true. Now, before I get into the article, let me just talk to you a second here. We know that Posse Comitatus says that the military cannot be used against American citizens unless the president signs the Insurrection Act of 1871, which declares that there is a major emergency, and if he signs that document, and some people think he already has, some people think he signed it before he left office the first time, but nevertheless, if the president signs that, now he has authority to send and use the military directly against American citizens. Now, I know that's a little scary if a bad guy's in control, but if the good guys are trying to clean up our nation, I want to believe that it's a good thing. But it scares me to think that anybody could start using the military against U.S. citizens. Let's look what he says here. President Trump's recent federalization of Washington, D.C.'s police force. By the way, Washington, D.C. is not a state of the United States. It's not one of the 50 states. And it has different laws, and the president has more authority there than with other states. But let's go on. Police force and deployment of the National Guard is being presented as a model for other cities. During a cabinet meeting on July 8th, Trump stated, quote, "We have tremendous power at the White House to run places when we have to, but opponents argue that the legal and political constraints make similar moves in places like New York City unlikely." Well, now wait a minute. Again, it's different for D.C., but he's going to answer it for the whole nation here in just a second. Whether a New York takeover would be unconstitutional depends on how the term takeover is defined. The federal government has broad powers it can legally exercise, even if never used before. Powers opponents might label it a takeover, but which could still fall well within the law, beginning with the deployment of federal troops and the National Guard in California, and later in Washington, D.C., Trump has acted within the law. Under federal authority, a president can deploy National Guards for law enforcement with cooperation from state leaders, or under specific legal justifications. While large-scale immigration raids and support operations against protests could expand to Democrat-run cities, sustained National Guard deployments, they would likely face court challenges. Yeah, Democrats do that all the time. However, that does not mean Trump cannot do them. The executive can proceed first and defend later, especially following the Supreme Court's recent 6-3 ruling limiting federal judges' ability to issue nationwide injunctions. This decision significantly strengthens executive power, allowing actions to move forward while litigation unfolds. Now, let me pose something else. Not only could Trump send in the National Guard and the military into the cities under these circumstances, but what if he just suspends the Constitution and basically overthrows the all-capital United States of America and brings in a new republic called the Republic of the United States? And then he enforces Nasara and Gassara laws, which I have not mentioned before. And they've taken the information on that down from the internet. It used to be up to where you could Google it and find it real easy. But it's a whole new financial system. It's a whole new system coming into America. And I personally think that's what the prophecies say. Let's go on, though. The largest immigrant detention center in the U.S. has opened. Okay, why? Why? Why are they opening all of these detention? Well, they're for all these immigrants. Yeah, but it's not just for the immigrants, because the immigrants can be flown out. But some of the other people that are senators and congressmen and mayors and governors and big bankers and big business people, we have to have a place to put them. In other words, I've showed you that there's some 500,000 seal indictments. That means that there's some 500,000 people that could possibly, I don't know if they're going to arrest all of them, but could possibly be arrested. The article says, an entrance to Fort Bliss. Okay, wait a minute. Fort Bliss? We don't arrest people civilly to hold them in military detention centers. But if we arrest them militarily to be tried in a military tribunal, it might make sense that they would be held in a military facility. What is Fort Bliss? It is a military facility, and they can hold military tribunals there. Let's go on. An entrance to Fort Bliss in Texas on June 25th. Credit, and this is what you're seeing here, okay? A detention center that is poised to become the largest kind of its kind in the country, opened on military base in El Paso, over the weekend amid concerns over safety, costs, and lack of transparency. Immigration and Customs Enforcement began detaining people on Sunday at the Fort Bliss facility. Did you catch that? It is now open for business or open for bodies on a military property. Means they can hold military tribunals there for people that are arrested by the military. Anyway, it says people on Sunday Fort Bliss facility dubbed the Lone Star Lockup by its supporters in what is said as an effort to decompress ICE detention facilities and other locations. Okay, yeah. I think it's, you see, I can't wipe the smile off my face. I think this is the reason, like, we've had several people celebrating in the streets. I'm thinking of two right now. More than $1 billion was invested in the detention center to expand its current 1,000-bed up to 5,000-bed facility. I said it hoped the facility would streamline and expedite removal processes. Yeah. It's not just removal. Maybe that's all I should say. Last week, President Donald Trump invoked emergency powers to call in the National Guard and take control of police in Washington, D.C. But he's also said it ain't going to stop there. The largest federal immigration detention center in history, but more mega facilities are being built. They already got the money to do it. Lone Star Lockup could become the largest federal immigration detention center in the whole country. Fort Bliss, military. Then you jump to natural news. So I think what they did was they did a search on an AI program, and this is what they came up with. I think you'll find it interesting. Trump deploys National Guard to cities ahead of massive left wing uprising. What is a massive left wing uprising? See, I have been on natural news and I've talked to them about the massive arrests. And I think that they believed me. And I think that this whole article may have been helped or motivated by that talk that I gave. Massive left-wing uprising over deep state indictments. National Guard deployment. President Trump has authorized National Guard troops in major U.S. cities to suppress expected left-wing riots triggered by deep state indictments targeting figures like Brennan, Clapper, and Clinton. Yeah, and more. Blue cities as battlegrounds. Leftist strongholds such as Chicago, New York City, L.A. may erupt in violence with mob. I think this is the AI talking. And here in just a second, I'm going to show you absolutely positively. It's what the AI says. Mobs attacking law enforcement, infrastructure, National Guard units, escalating urban warfare scenarios, or an internal revolution. Military readiness versus civil unrest. Conservatives now support militarized policing due to frustration with Blue City chaos, though National Guard troops may be under-equipped, sidearms only, against organized mobs. Look, at the start of this, it's not going to be an internal revolution, but I think this is going to be the start of it. Blue cities expected to explode. Adams warns that blue strongholds in Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles, already plagued by unchecked crime and progressive governance, may become battlegrounds or internal revolution eventually, not immediately, but soon. Battlegrounds once indictments are unsealed. Now, how many people do you know of that are talking about sealed indictments? I think they listened to my talk when I was there. The radical left, he argues, will perceive these arrests as an existential, that's hard for me to say, I don't know why, existential threat, and respond with mass violence. Once the indictments drop, sealed indictments, the left will scream that Trump is a dictator. True. They'll attack federal law enforcement. True. ICE agents, even National Guard troops, and they may try to sabotage infrastructure, power grids, bridges, highways, anything to incite chaos. Who's been saying that now for a long time? I started talking about this in 2017, my brothers. Unlike the fabricated insurrection narrative of January 6th, this unrest would target actual government institutions. Now, I did this to grok.com. This was the question I posed to it. Could Trump deploy National Guard to cities ahead of massive left-wing uprising? I got those words from this article. Massive left-wing uprising over deep state indictments cause an internal revolution. It says it could escalate tensions, but it's unlikely to cause a full-scale internal revolution on its own. Now, it goes on to say, it's not going to cause an internal revolution unless. Now, let's look at the unless. The deployment of the National Guard in response to anticipated unrest over deep state indictments could spark protest, particularly in Democrat strongholds, and may escalate tensions due to the militarized approach and political rhetoric. However, an internal revolution is improbable due to the lack of, here it is, a unified revolutionary movement. Okay, so what it's saying is there could be an internal revolution if there was some kind of a movement that would rise up that would get people organized to fight against the government. Enter Blackout the System. Okay, so thank you, by the way. I get a lot of this from you sending in your emails to me. Thank you. So somebody sent this in, and it's a brand new website that has just recently popped up, and it's called blackoutthesystem.com. Blackoutthesystem.com. I believe that's correct. It says, we're not asking, we're shutting it down. The largest economic blackout protest in U.S. history begins now. Coordinated national pushback, maximum local impact. Join the team, get free stickers. Blackout pledge now. Before you sign the pledge, know that Blackout the System does not accept donations. Any donations made on the petition will go to change.org. Okay, so this is blackoutthesystem.com, I believe, as I recall. It goes on to a call to action. If you look in the bottom left corner, you see a map in the United States of all the various places where they're planning on blacking out. Now, what are they talking about? It says, we're top right corner, we're shutting down the U.S. economy strategically and peacefully by removing our labor, our spending, and financial support, forcing the system to listen. This movement, launched to reclaim power, restore justice, and unite citizens all across races, cultures, and classes. Now, let me just say, we saw the No Kings protests, 1,800 cities, but that didn't really do anything. I don't think this can do anything, but that's not my point. My point is, let me back up to the article right here. It says, in what about the 3/4 way down, unified revolutionary movement. There has to be a unification. The left would have to get organized in order to have an internal revolution. Well, they can't do that because they can't communicate. Oh, yes, they can. They have social media. They have X. They have all sorts of ways to communicate these days. Now, let me read the last few lines here. The more likely outcome is localized unrest, potential civil liberties, disputes, and heightened. Okay, so it doesn't see an internal revolution unless they can get organized and boom. And remember the No Kings. So can they get organized? Will they get organized? You better know that they will. All right, now, you may be saying, wait, if all of this were true, if Dimitri Duduman's warning the fall of America will start with an internal revolution in America, started by the communists, some of the people will start fighting against the government. The government will be busy with the internal problems. Then from the oceans, Russia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Central America, Mexico, and two of the countries couldn't remember, and I think those other two countries are Venezuela and North Korea. And I'm not even going to limit it to that. There could be more than that. But the point is, if this were true, if we're getting close to the internal revolution, we should start seeing Central American countries turning against America. Okay, let's look at Mexico. Military to take on drug cartels. The U.S. has designated 6 major Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. The Sinaloa Cartel, Jalisco New Generation Cartel, Gulf Cartel, Northeast Cartel, United Cartels, and the Minoacan family. I never heard of some of them. Secretary of State Marco Rubio explained that designating cartels as foreign terrorist organization gives the U.S. government expanded legal authority to act against them. It's no longer a law enforcement issue. It now becomes national security or war. Oh, really? He says we have to start treating them as armed terrorist organizations, not simply drug-dealing organizations. The order establishes an official basis for potential direct military operations, both at sea and on foreign soil against cartels. Okay, what's it talking about? It's talking about our Navy potentially using the vessels and the submarines to put bombs in the face of some cartels. But it didn't stop there. It said on foreign soil. It's talking about putting boots on the ground in Central American countries. Really? Well, look, I didn't write it. Read it. U.S. military officials have begun drafting options ranging from, here it is, Navy destroyer missile strikes. That's boom, okay? On cartel leaders or infrastructure to deeper cooperation with Mexican authorities. This directive reflects Trump's border use of military forces for border and immigration enforcement. More than 10,000 service members have been deployed to the U.S.-Mexico border, and the Pentagon has created 3 national defense areas in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, treating them as extensions of military bases to bolster security. What is he saying? He's saying that America is about to go to war with Central America, some Central American nations. Could it be that Trump's good intentions of trying to stop the flow of fentanyl that's killing Americans into America actually stirs up the anger of our Central American friends down south, and they decide that when Russia contacts them and says, hey, have you seen the internal revolution? Have you seen the problems going on in America, which are about to start? We have decided we're going to attack America. You want to join? And all of a sudden, Mexico, Central America, Venezuela, Cuba, all say, they attacked us first. Sounded like a good idea to me. And they join Russia. The administration has also implemented the Fentanyl Sanctions Act. I hadn't heard of this one. And the Fend Off Fentanyl Act, granting the Treasury additional powers to target money laundering tied to fentanyl trafficking. Okay, so you want to make somebody mad? Kick sand in their eyes and then take their money away, and that's exactly what Trump is about to do. Additional powers to target money laundering tied to fentanyl trafficking. Using his authority, FinCEN on June 25 ordered U.S. financial institutions to cut ties with 3 Mexico-based banks, CI Banco, Intercam Banco, and Vector Casa de Bolsa, accused of laundering millions of cartels and facilitating payments for precursor chemicals used in fentanyl production. In other words, they're taking their money. They're taking the cartels' money. They're making them really, really, really mad. Wait till the bombs start falling. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum firmly rejected any prospect of U.S. military intervention. The United States is not going to come to Mexico. Oh, yeah, really? To Mexico with our military, she said Friday. We cooperate. We collaborate. But there is not going to be an invasion. That is ruled out. Absolutely ruled out. Well, Sheinbaum, maybe you better listen to this program. Maybe you better listen and watch what Trump is doing, because that's not what he's planning. Another, military preparing attacks on Mexican cartels. Yeah, it's real. Secret orders target cartels, the new terrorist. The Trump administration has directed the military to prepare for lethal strikes against cartel targets inside Mexico. 3 military sources tell us the top secret planning order issued in late spring directs NORTHCOM to manage the attacks, which are to be ready by when? Mid-September. I'm telling you, all of this is going to happen in September. And the other, by the way, do you know what September 22, 23, and 24 is? That's Rosh Hashanah. Bible says that when God is going to do something, he does it on his feast days. Those are his feast days. So I'm watching very close to see what happens September 22, 23, and 24. Let's go on. And he and the other sources say that military action could be unilateral, that is, without the involvement or approval of the Mexican government. I give you what is going to make Mexico mad. Operations inside Mexico have previously been conducted by the CIA and the Joint Special Operations, or the kind of under the radar. But the CIA has increased reconnaissance operations over Mexico with its own drones, far larger magnitude. NORTHCOM is already involved in Mexico in a host of ways, including combating the cartels. They're about to start spilling blood over this. When Trump declared the cartels' trafficking of drugs and people into America an invasion, he wasn't joking. What he's using has created the basis for the military to prepare to respond to cartels in a similar way he did as 9/11. We have to start treating them as armed terrorist organizations, or they're starting a war. Trump is starting a war with Mexico. I mean, this is the way it reads here. So Trump says military sources also tell me is focused on results willing to ignore the law, rules, and even policy recommendations in his zeal to have progress towards his goals with regard to national security. For the White House, the fentanyl crisis in America is one of the key measures of the success of the new, look at the word, war. The new war, look at the word, new war on the cartels. Fentanyl's death toll represents a crisis, having claimed the lives of over 225,000 Americans. I give you prophecy in fulfillment. If you don't want to lose your life's savings, if you have an IRA or a 401k, the thing to do is call 800-200-GOLD. 800-200-GOLD. These folks are Christians and they specialize in helping people not lose their life savings in the event of a stock market crash and things like that. Look, most of the 401ks, most of the IRAs are in paper, backed by paper, and as Lindsey Williams says, if it's in paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. You can lose it all. 1-800-200-GOLD. 800-200-GOLD. Hey, give them a call. Doesn't hurt, doesn't cost you anything. See if they can give you some good advice. In 2021, I started making bread. And long story short is I believe God showed me that wheat is God's famine food, just like it was famine food back in the 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine, days of Pharaoh and Joseph. And I believe that that's what God has planned to feed his people. And you get it by going to josephskitchen.com. 3 steps. First, you want to get a machine package. Second, you want to order 6 ingredients and watch some videos, download the recipes to be able to make the bread. josephskitchen.com. Most of your long-time storage food, emergency food, all of that, typically are talking $9,000, $10,000 to feed one person for a year. Joseph Kitchen can show you how to do it for around $1,000 a person, and your kids will actually eat it, and it's actually good for you. Here's some bread that I made. In my case, I lost weight, lowered my blood pressure, gives me more energy. I eat a morning, slice in the morning, slice in the afternoon, always a slice before I go play racquetball. Go check it out, josephskitchen.com. When the suitcase nukes, I didn't say if, I said when the suitcase nukes go off, if you want your car to start, if you want your computers and your refrigerators and things like that, anything with a computer chip to work, you want to have one of these from EMPShield.com. EMPShield.com. And they have videos up there. It takes about 10 minutes to put on. It's not complicated at all. And if you use the word prophecy, promo code prophecy, you get a $50 discount and it helps your Prophecy Club.